Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you have ever been wronged by someone who never took responsibility for their actions? Maybe you were disrespected, belittled, or even betrayed by someone who wore their charm like a mask, never showing their true nature. Now, here's the real question. How often have you been told to turn the other cheek, to forgive and forget, to be kind to everyone, no matter what? What if I told you that this mindset, though noble on the surface, can be one of the most dangerous traps we fall into? It's time to challenge this belief because it leads us to enable behavior that shouldn't be tolerated. And today I want to talk about why you should never call out a narcissist and what God says you should do instead. You see, narcissism isn't just a trait. It's an emotional battlefield. It's the art of manipulation, the twisting of truth, the consumption of empathy for their gain. If you've encountered a narcissist, you know the pain that comes with it. But here's the hard truth. Society has taught us to be nice, to let things go, to turn a blind eye. It's almost as if we're supposed to endure, smile, and move forward in silence, as though there's something holy in enduring endless mistreatment. But is that what God truly desires for us? Is that how we were created to live? God didn't send us here to be passive doormats waiting for people to walk all over us. No! He created us to stand tall, speak truth, and protect our hearts. The idea that being kind to everyone, no matter the cost, is biblical, but it is misinterpreted. In fact, there's a deeper wisdom in his teachings that calls for boundaries, protection, and the wisdom to know when to walk away. Being kind to everyone doesn't mean enabling toxic behavior or staying in relationships that strip us of our dignity. Think about it. How often do we tolerate toxic people in our lives simply because we were told that kindness is the highest virtue? It's a lie. Narcissists don't change because we're kind. They thrive on kindness because it keeps them in control. They play on your emotions, feeding off your empathy while draining your energy. So what happens to you? You end up exhausted, burned out, and emotionally broken. How does that serve God's purpose for your life? Where is the balance between love and self-preservation? Now I want you to pause and reflect. Think about the relationships in your life. How many of them are draining you? How many of them are constantly testing your patience, leaving you questioning your self-worth? We have been conditioned to stay in these exhausting cycles, but here's the truth. God doesn't want you to suffer in silence. He wants you to be wise, to protect your peace, and to recognize when it's time to walk away from people who refuse to change. In the next few minutes, we will dive deeper into why being kind to everyone isn't always the answer, and how you can take a stand against narcissism, and how you can take a stand against narcissism. It's time to stop feeding the narcissist in your life, and it's time to start feeding yourself. Are you ready? Because what I'm about to share is going to change everything. Think back to that moment when you first encountered a narcissist. Was it someone you trusted? A friend? A family member? What did you feel in that moment? Perhaps there was a sense of confusion, a nagging thought that something wasn't quite right. You couldn't put your finger on it, could you? Because narcissists have mastered the art of manipulation. They are experts at getting you to doubt your own instincts. And what do they feed on? Your kindness. Here's the kicker. Kindness doesn't solve the narcissist's problem. It only enables their toxic behavior. When you give them your patience and empathy, they don't grow. They don't become better. They become more entitled. Why? Because narcissists believe the world revolves around them, and as long as you continue to support them through your unconditional kindness, they will take and take, leaving you with nothing. You will give your energy to them while they never give back. You may even end up feeling like you are the problem. How many times have we heard the phrase, kill them with kindness? I can't count the number of times I've heard that advice. But here's what's true. Sometimes kindness is a weapon used against us. Narcissists are experts in making you feel guilty for setting boundaries. They will make you feel as though you're in the wrong for protecting your peace. But I'm here to tell you that kindness does not mean you should sacrifice your soul. God didn't create you to be a doormat, silently suffering at the expense of others. The thing is, we often forget that narcissism isn't just about being selfish. It's about controlling others through emotional manipulation. It's about making you question your reality, doubting your worth, and doubting God's plan for your life. Have you ever felt like you were walking on eggshells around someone? That's the narcissist at work. And here's where the problem lies. When we kill them with kindness, We are essentially teaching them that their behavior is acceptable. We're teaching them that it's okay to be cruel, as long as they know how to play the game. Imagine the power of setting a boundary. Imagine the power of saying, "No more. I will not participate in this toxic dynamic." That, my friends, is where the real change begins. But first, we need to understand the mechanics of a narcissist's game. Their goal is to drain you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And they don't care if it's through manipulation, guilt-tripping, or outright abuse. They need you to stay in the cycle. So what do we do instead of calling them out or staying kind? We walk away. We set boundaries, firm boundaries that protect our peace and energy. We take a step back and say, I am not going to lose myself to this. I am going to protect my heart, because that's what God calls me to do. And yes, that's hard. It requires strength, courage, and wisdom, but it is the right thing to do. Have you ever felt like you were constantly running on empty? Like you were giving and giving to people who only took, and no matter how much you gave, it was never enough? That's the exhausting nature of narcissism. Narcissists don't care about your needs. They only care about their own. And as long as you continue to enable their behavior, you're giving them permission to keep draining you dry. But here's what happens when you do this. You start to lose yourself. You start to lose your joy, your peace, and your energy. You start to question your own worth. It's like a slow burn. Day after day, you give in to their demands, their whims, their emotional blackmail, and over time, you lose your sense of self. Your boundaries erode. And before you know it, you're stuck in a cycle of giving, giving, and giving until there's nothing left to give. You've become emotionally exhausted, burned out, and resentful, but you don't know how to stop. The problem is, you're too nice, you're too kind, and you've been told that kindness is your duty. But God didn't call you to be emotionally drained and spiritually depleted. God didn't call you to lose your sense of self in relationships. He called you to love yourself, to honor yourself, and to recognize when you need to step back and protect your well-being. The problem isn't with your kindness. The problem is with how you're applying it. You're pouring into a vessel that can never be filled. And that's not healthy. It's time to stop giving to people who will never give back. I want you to think about the people in your life who take from you without ever giving back. Think about the times you've sacrificed your peace for the sake of others. Have you ever felt like you were drowning in their needs? Like you couldn't breathe because you were always trying to keep them afloat? It's exhausting, isn't it? But here's the shocking truth. The more you enable them, the more you lose yourself. Your joy, your peace, your purpose, everything starts to fade. It's like running a race where the finish line keeps moving further away. No matter how fast you run, you never get closer. And that's exactly how narcissism works. It's a cycle of empty promises and false hope. The narcissist will always make you believe that if you just keep being kind, everything will change. But it doesn't. And eventually you'll end up with nothing but emotional scars. God calls us to be wise in our relationships. He calls us to know when to walk away, when to protect ourselves, and when to let go of toxic influences. This is not selfishness. It's self-preservation. You read that? And self-preservation is essential for our mental, emotional, and spiritual health. You can't pour from an empty cup. Thanks.